Hi, and welcome back. Today, I wanted to talk to you about the evolution of a magazine story and give you a little bit of insight into my experience in creating this piece called Lost at Sea, which you can find a link to on today's lesson. Now, the story takes a look at a cardiologist who had decided he wanted to row by himself across the Atlantic Ocean. He was a recently retired head of the cardiology department at Northwestern Memorial Hospital in Chicago, a pretty prominent guy. And I followed this story really weeks before its tragic conclusion. There were stories in the Chicago papers, which is where I'm from, that started to notify the public that this man who had set out to row across the Atlantic was missing. And so during the course of several weeks, I had followed this story, intrigued by this whole notion, this whole adventure of a man deciding to row by himself across the Atlantic. And so eventually, probably about 6 weeks after the stories began to appear, his boat was found floating several miles off the coast of Ireland, and tragically, he was not in the boat. And so over the weeks, I had begun collecting these newspaper articles and cutting them out and thinking, maybe there's going to be a story here at some point. And that's one of the things that I encourage everybody to do, is if you see something interesting in the newspaper or in a magazine, clip it out, and this could be fuel for a future magazine story. And I thought, this story had all the elements of a good piece. An adventure at sea, kind of a mysterious disappearance. And so I just continued to accumulate material on this and thinking that maybe at some point it might be a good idea to discover the hows and whys and look at the story behind the story. And so thus began my journey to kind of investigate this man's life, Nenad Bellic, to discover how and why he decided to take this incredible journey and why it ended so tragically. Now, during the course of his disappearance, his sons had set up a website, and through that website I was able to get some names and contacts of some people so I can begin my reporting and my preliminary research. What I wanted to do was maybe give this a little bit of time, because the family of the lost cardiologist was certainly going through a grief period, and I wanted to handle this sensitively and in a way that I might get them to cooperate with me and talk to me about the story. And so several weeks after his boat was discovered, it turns out that there was a memorial service here in Chicago, and I decided to go to that memorial service. I figured I would lay low and introduce myself to some people and see if they might be interested in talking to me about this story. I had been in email contact with his sons, who happened to be documentary filmmakers, and thankfully they were sympathetic to me, being a fellow journalist. So it was through these initial contacts that I was able to make some more contacts through email, through telephone calls, and eventually got people to open up and talk to me about this extraordinary man, Nenad Bellic. And what I thought would make this an important story was really to explore what motivated him to do this. This is a classic example of the kind of magazine story where we already know what the ending is. Sadly, it ended in tragedy, but I wanted to kind of go back and trace the beginnings of this and understand where he came from and how this journey went forth. And so we can talk about this more specifically in the forums, and you can ask questions, and we can have a Q&A session about some of the specific techniques that I used to report the story, and also how I decided to write the story. So when you have time, read the story. We'll go back to the forums and we can discuss this further. Thanks, and I hope you enjoy the story.